Is your Google Ads account stuck in the past? Gen Z is not clicking on the same old ads as their parents did. Discover why your current strategies might be missing an entire generation and what you absolutely must change to future-proof your campaigns for today's digitally native audience. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, the Google Ad Strategy Hub podcast host. Today, we're talking about a topic that I know advertisers are quietly struggling with, and that's reaching younger audiences, specifically Gen Z. If you've noticed that your campaigns are not connecting like they used to, or your conversions are seeming to age up every single year, then this episode is for you. As of late 2025, Gen Z is between 13 and 28 years old. This is the first generation that grew up entirely and fully online the whole entire time. They have had smartphones since they were in middle school, the oldest of them, and the youngest ones coming up, they've had smartphones since they were toddlers, or at least some level of access to them, like it or not. And they've never known a world without YouTube, TikTok, or just really instant access to information. They're now growing up with ChatGPT and AI becoming a part of it. So here's what you're going to learn today. Why the traditional Google Ads approaches are absolutely falling flat with Gen Z. You're going to learn why this generation actually spends their time online and what they're doing. And you're going to learn the most important thing, how to future-proof your campaigns for the nonlinear buyer journeys. What can you start doing today to make your Google Ads strategy Gen Z proof? Well, I'm going to tell you. Let's get into it. Let's start with the obvious. The Gen Z is what I call the skip ad generation. 99% of them skip an ad in under 5 seconds. If you've ever watched your kid online, it is like this. That is not me exaggerating. That is the reality today. They grew up with ad blockers. Like my husband has installed ad blockers on our network. They've grown up with sponsored posts and pre-rolls and just constant interruption marketing. And it doesn't just annoy them, it actually has trained their brains to start tuning you out. And yet so many advertisers, they're still writing copy like it's 15, probably because a lot of us paid search experts grew up in 2015 in this industry. I mean, if you say you started PPC in 2015, you were probably a little earlier in the game. So a lot of times what we're seeing with our keywords is advertisers are stuffing keywords into headlines, polishing the creative to this corporate level of perfection. I mean, I told you in my episode where I talked about what it was like managing accounts for big budgets, very, very corporate perfection type of ads. And then we have executives and we have people that are doing Google Ads wondering why engagement keeps dropping or why they're not getting the click-through rates they once did. Here's the truth. Gen Z doesn't hate advertising. They just absolutely hate feeling advertised to. I talked about this before in my episode where I talk about serving, not selling, and that complete pick-me energy. The Gen Z, they're going to pick up on that right away without you even trying to. They'll just pick up on it, put it this way. They want authenticity. They want humor. They want to see where brands actually stand for something and actually mean it. If this sounds like your press release, then you've already lost them. So your ad cannot sound like the press release. They're done. You've lost them. I saw this with actually a client that I was working on in retail. Their ads used to absolutely do so well with millennials. They had sleek visuals. They were aesthetic, brand heavy headlines. It was a very, very polished tone, but then performance slowly over the years started decreasing. And what happened is we looked at the creative and we noticed that the more user-generated content with real people, the more casual language, the less perfection that we had in our ads, the CTR went up by 48%. It was the same offer. The only thing that we changed with the new creative team is just being more authentic. And I saw this a lot on the agency side. So before you even think about where Gen Z is spending time, what I want you to think about is the tone of your ads. I want you to look at, are you talking to them or are you speaking like them? Okay, now that we know why your ads are falling short in tone and the language, let's talk about where Gen Z is actually hanging out online. It's not the Google search results page. Oh, there, you have it. Gen Z is a very visual first generation. They're platform hopping constantly, which makes it even more confusing. They're discovering products through YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and then hopping back and forth. In fact, over half of Gen Z say that they use TikTok as a search engine. That horrifies me, but that is the fact that we're dealing with today. They literally type best running shoes 2025 into TikTok before they use Google. So what does that mean for you, especially as a Google Ads advertiser? It means that you need to think beyond keywords. And that is where Google's pushing. And this is not a Google propaganda video, but you need to really start thinking about when Google says things, does it make sense? And in this case, it kind of does. So this is where Google's Performance Max comes in. And again, I'm going to say they're demand gen. You know, I think what I have heard people say is it's Google's version of metification. They're trying to make Google a lot like Facebook. And we see it. You can see the commonalities there. But really, with Performance Max and demand gen to a little bit of an extent as well, not as broad as PMax, your ads stretch across YouTube, Gmail, Display. It is a platform reality. And for Gen Z who jumps from app to app to app, that's actually a really good thing. It lets your ads follow them in a non-creepy way through the journey when they search, but also when they scroll. You know, I often think about when I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm sometimes scrolling the feed looking for my next video. And these ads are in there in such of a way. So if you're only using Performance Max with old school creative, you're actually just missing the mark. And we've said this since Performance Max was invented, is this needs to be lifestyle imagery. But the data we have a couple of years now is really, really out. You do not just want to be using a hero product, your product just standing there with a white bracket. You really want that interaction, the people using lay flat, beautiful images that show the lifestyle and the product in use and have more of that authentic feel. This generation, they engage with people, not logos. And that is why we saw the influx of influencer marketing and user-generated content that are absolutely exploding. And this is also why we see micro-influencers, people, frankly, like myself and my other Google Ads experts. We are B2B micro-influencers. You have 5,000 to 50,000 followers, and we outperform, if Google, for example, hired a celebrity to advertise for them because we're real. We work in the platform. And I could say that as a B2B influencer. And so that is the fact of the matter when it comes to how advertising is working. So think about it like this. Gen Z doesn't want to be convinced. They want to discover. They want to feel like they found something. So your job as an advertiser is to make discovery feel organic, even inside your paid ads campaigns. All right. So now we know where they are. How do they actually make buying decisions? Because that's really important, obviously, since we talk a lot on this channel about getting the conversion. If you're still thinking in terms of that linear funnel, right? So like awareness, consideration, and conversion, Gen Z has broken that. It is not like that anymore, and that is an outdated model. The journey looks a lot more like a circle. They may see a TikTok, search on Google, check Instagram, read Reddit, go back to TikTok for reviews, and then finally click on a YouTube ad to end up buying. In that loop, social proof is going to be absolutely everything. They don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from people like them. And that is why reviews, unboxing videos, Reddit threads, which I talked about in another video about why major advertisers are using Reddit for their customer research, user-generated content. These types of things matter today in 2025 more than ever. I actually recently worked with a brand. I consulted to them, and we added a 15-second unboxing clip to their YouTube ad sequence, and it was really simple. And it was just a customer opening a product. Conversions jumped by 22% with that ad. And it didn't even feel like an ad. It wasn't fancy, but it was truly, truly genuine. Now let's talk about data and privacy, especially when it comes to Gen Z. They value privacy more than any other generation because they've been raised on this type of assumption, but they're not against data sharing. They're actually against info if they don't get something valuable back. So they're willing to give you that email. They're willing to subscribe, but they want that personalization and transparency, or they want some type of perk in response. So if you're giving a discount for the exclusive, they'll sign up for your text, they'll sign up for your email. So if you're collecting data, the real key takeaway is tell them what you're using for it, give them something meaningful in return, early access to launches, exclusive tips. Think like these micro fitness brands who always do early access to their Black Friday sales, loyalty perks, and things like that. They need to get something out of it. All right, so we've covered the why, the what. Now let's talk about the how. And we're going to talk about the how specifically for Google Ads. Here is where you can start making changes today, specifically for Google Ads. First, in the old days, we would segment our audiences by generation, right? So we could have taken demographic targeting and built separate ad groups and then had ads by separate ads to target each demographic, or we would choose an in-market audience and then write an ad for that in-market audience and separate that out so that we could see that. Here's the thing. You're still kind of doing that today, but it's not the way that you think. Now you have to think contextually. So think about an RSA ad. An RSA ad can, and I've said this, you can Tetris together 48,000 combos. And so you need to think about your RSA as a building blocks and a block maker, right? Or I guess a tower maker, if the tower is that. And so when you think about headlines, you want to mix your headlines. You want headlines that speak directly to younger users with a different tone, different phrasing, the same offer. I see so many accounts. I go in and audit them, and I always use running shoes, right? Blue running shoes, blue running shoe. Running shoe, blue running sneaker. Like it's the same variation over and over with no different tone, no different phrasing. It's just a different way of saying and matching the user search query. We talk about matching the search query. Yeah, do that once or twice. But other than that, layer in different tone for different audiences that you're targeting within your RSA ads so that Google is able to Tetris together the right ad at the right time for the right place for these generations that are searching. Second, refresh your freaking creative. Drop the overproduced content. Use lifestyle imagery. We've said that. Be okay with lo-fi videos and conversational copy. Gen Z will spot a stock photo a mile away, and it's very ugly to them. And then third, optimize your bidding strategies. Smart bidding, especially in like YouTube, smart bidding in Google Ads does a great job tracking this multi-touch behavior. It's a lot of why we like smart bidding. It's perfect for audiences who bounce between devices and platforms. It enables us to not have to put in a modifier for mobile or not have to put in a mobile for desktop. It's very responsive to all those signals that the individual users are giving in a privacy-centric way. You can also test everything. Run experiments in Google Ads. Create Gen Z specific variants of your campaigns. Maybe make an entire ad that is modern and conversational and test that ad against, a very, very corporate jargon ad. See where it goes and put those head to head with your standard ads. And then also you can split test these. You can do them 50-50. You can do them 30-70 if you're feeling a little anxious about it, but you're going to end up seeing those results right on the ad platform under the statistics if you run it through experiments in Google Ads. And you'll see fast which tone converts better, which tone gets a better CTR. You'll see all the metrics if you run it through Google Ads experiments. And then fifth, review your attribution model. You should by default be on data-driven attribution, but this is really what Google has put forth to help you understand the top of the funnel campaigns and whether YouTube or demand gen are really, really influencing those eventual conversions down the line. And finally, be aware of brand. Gen Z notices brands that are in tune with what's happening in the world. Align your messaging to cultural movements or causes or things that your audience cares about. You don't need to be performative. You just need to be relevant. This is a generation that can smell. We've scheduled this 6 months ago energy from a mile away. So let's wrap this up. Gen Z isn't anti-advertising. They're anti-interruption marketing. They're fine being marketed to as long as it feels honest, human, and on their level. Success today isn't just about keywords or CPCs. It's about connecting and meeting people where they are with messaging that feels a lot more natural and authentic. The brands that win over the next decade are going to be the ones that adopt their entire funnel, not just their headlines. So here's my challenge for you. Look at your current Google Ads campaign. Could a Gen Z consumer see themselves in your messaging? If the answer is no, it's time for a refresh. And if this episode helped you think differently about your Google Ads strategy and what it means to the younger generation, I hope and I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment, share your thoughts on LinkedIn, or follow me for more unfiltered takes on how to actually make Google Ads work in 2025 and beyond. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and remember, the best Google Ads strategy is the one that evolves with your audience. Until next time, keep optimizing.